One of the biggest questions we get over and over again is, how do I start a cash practice? And I'm going to address that today. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about my background and why you'd even want to listen to me to begin with. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Danny Matta. I'm the founder of PT Biz, which is a company that helps cash-based clinicians all over the world start and grow successful cash practices. For the last almost 10 years, I've also been running my own cash practice called Athlete's Potential here in Atlanta, Georgia. And a lot of what I'm going to share with you comes from lessons learned that I learned the hard way, because 10 years ago when we started our practice, my wife and I, when I say we, that's what I mean, we didn't have a roadmap, we didn't have a blueprint, we didn't have somebody putting information out like this based off of relevant experience. A lot of it was trial and error and just trying to make something work. And a lot of it was because we wanted to treat people a certain way, we wanted to work with patients a certain way. And if you work in an in-network setting, if you work in a setting where you have high volume, where you're seeing, I consider high volume 15 plus people a day. A lot of people are seeing 20, 30 people a day. It's exhausting mentally, physically. You don't feel like you're giving your best effort to your patients because you just don't have time for it. And we didn't want that. So we decided to go the cash practice route, even though we didn't really know what we were doing. We didn't know what was going to happen. But we were able to figure it out, and we were able to grow that practice past ourselves to the biggest cash practice in the state of Georgia in a relatively short period of time, and then successfully actually even sell that practice. So we've gone from start, grow, to sell. So everything that I'm going to share with you is based off of relevant experience and not theory. I think that's really important that you know that. So let's get into it. So how do you start a cash practice, right? So starting a cash practice really is something that takes a little bit of effort on the administrative side, which is not something I'm good at. I'm not an operations guy. I'm not an admin guy. I'm bad at this stuff. And if it wasn't for my wife, I probably would have made a lot of significant mistakes that would have put us in a bad spot. So when I share this with you, this is the sort of checklist that you need to think about when you start a cash practice. And I'm going to get through this stuff pretty fast, because ultimately, somebody getting a business license is not what's going to help them be successful in a cash practice or not. But you do need it, right? The type of insurance that you get isn't going to help, but you do need it. So I'm going to talk about those things briefly, but then I'm going to tell you about the things you really need to focus on if you start a cash practice that are going to make or break your business, which is probably the more important, relevant piece. So first of all, here's what you really need, okay? Number one, check your practice act, okay? I know you might think a cash practice, it falls into some weird gray area, but if you have a license and you fall under a practice act, you legally have to abide by that practice act. So, like it or not, you need to read your practice act. So the easiest place to go is your local APTA chapter if you're a physical therapist. I'm assuming something similar if you're a chiropractor or a trainer of some sort, but figure out what you can legally do and understand like how you can build your business around that, because you do have to abide by those rules. So read through that, and I also recommend this. A lot of you will skip this, but I think it's a bad idea to do so. You should get a consult with a healthcare attorney, someone that is a lawyer that specializes in healthcare law. And I think the best approach, if you can do this is what I did: figure out who the representative is for your local APTA chapter, and then pay to consult with them for an hour or two, and have them break down the practice act for you and give you a very clear idea of what you can and can't do. That's really important, and that's what I would say is step number one. Make sure you know what you can do in your state. Number two, you need to form a business entity. So this would be, in most states, an LLC, some states a PLLC, which is a professional LLC. It depends on the state, but this is not something you have to do on your own. You can go through a CPA to do this, and if you want to, you can even go through something like a LegalZoom or a Rocket Lawyer. You can set up your own LLC. I recommend going through a professional, a CPA that can set this up for you, that will set up an entity the right way, and you'll know that it's set up. This is just a way you can set up a business that separates the business from you personally, which gives you a layer of protection, which is beneficial in case something ever happened in the business. So check your practice act, get your LLC. You need an NPI number. You probably have an NPI number. You need one for the business though. So get a business NPI. You need a business license. This is going to be through your state and the city. So you're going to go to your business office at the actual like county and city that you're going to function in, and then ask them what kind of license do you need and get all that stuff set up. It's literally going into an office or reading, the actual website of the county and the city and figuring out what business license you need. Pay a little bit of money. Typically it's not much. Maybe it's like $100. Get your business license and you're good to go. It's something you're going to need to renew every single year. The other thing you're going to need is malpractice insurance. So malpractice insurance, you probably already have through your employer. They're probably covering you. You may have some yourself. The nice thing as a clinician, people don't sue us very often. People don't like and that typically are doing surgeries. And we don't do any of that. And typically people like us. We have a practice and in a setting where people bring us like cakes and stuff because they enjoy being around us so much. That's not the case. If you're a surgeon and you're working on somebody's brain or something like that, it's far more risky, and malpractice insurance is way higher in that setting than it is in a clinical setting because we just have less that we can screw up in a lot of ways as well. So malpractice insurance is typically very cheap. You can get this through a number of different settings. The biggest one is like HPSO. Typically it's going to be a little bit higher. You can look at your local insurance agents. You can look at any number of other variations for malpractice insurance, but it's not much. It is something you're going to need to cover yourself though as a practicing clinician. You're going to need a business account and honestly a business credit card. And those two you can get in the same place. So you can do a local bank, you can do something like Chase that's big. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter that much. I would recommend getting a business credit card though, because one of the perks of having a business is being able to run all of the actual like spend that you have to have for the business, the expenses you have to run the business. You can run the vast majority of that through a credit card and you can start racking up credit card points and travel all over the place for free. So we'll save that for another episode. You're going to need a website and a social presence, okay? So a basic website, you can do this yourself. You can set up a Squarespace website, a Weebly website, any number of just like drag and drop websites to start with. I don't recommend staying that way as you get bigger. You can reinvest in this, and I think it's a great place to reinvest. But when you're just getting started, you don't want to have a lot of expenses. You want to keep it really low. And this is an easy way for you to sort of build that out, right? So you can make your own little website on a Squarespace, take a look at other people's sites, and you can model after that, right? Don't just steal all of their website copy. That's illegal. But if you're like, oh, okay, this is kind of what I have to say about myself, take a look at it. Go to athletespotential.com, the practice that we had. You can take a look at exactly how we had that set up and some of the verbiage we used to give you an example of what to do. You also want social accounts. So make sure you're getting social accounts on things like Facebook and Instagram, maybe TikTok if you're into that platform as well, for your actual practice, and YouTube. And it's because you're going to build assets on that. So posting things on social media, building or videos like this. If you have exercise videos, you have a whole bank of that you can then send to clients. It also builds a place where people can find you. So make sure you're going to go get all your social accounts on, especially Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Those are big ones that you're going to want to use and probably are going to use for an extended period of time. The last thing you're going to want is where you're going to treat people. And now that we're past all of the stuff you can do without necessarily needing a space, the finding of a space for a lot of people is what stops them in their tracks, because the going out and like talking to other people, if you're looking at subleasing a space, that might freak you out a little bit. Going and getting rejected by another human being and business owner might literally make you not want to leave your house or your office. But ultimately you have to ask yourself, is what you're trying to move towards important enough for you to get over the anxiety you have with maybe getting turned down by people that you want to sublease an office from? And that's one way to go about it. You can get a sublease office in another practitioner's office. You can do that in a gym. You can do that in there's like co-ops for wellness providers. You can also treat out of your house in certain states and certain cities, your garage. These are possible areas that we've seen people have success with. And the last one would be mobile. This is one that we don't mind people starting with, but typically we don't recommend that they stay there. And the main reason is you're going to end up spending a heck of a lot of time in your car when you could have people coming to you and be a lot more efficient with your time and increase your revenue substantially. But if you need to start mobile and go and treat people, go for it, right? But keep in mind, you probably are ultimately going to want to move to some sort of fixed space so that you can save a lot of time. So finding a space, that's big. And then the last couple things are what you're going to need to focus on to actually make this work. All the shit that I just went over, you have to do, and it is boring and redundant, but you have to have it. But you can have all these things lined up, check all these boxes, and have a shiny space that you're subleasing and sit in there and not have a single fucking person come in. And we see this happen all the time, constantly. And that's a pretty terrible feeling. You went through all this stuff, you're all excited about, I'm gonna start my own cash practice, I'm gonna be my own boss, I'm gonna do all this stuff that I hear people that are doing, and you have no idea how to actually get people in your office, talk to them about their plan of care, which involves money, and deliver on that and be able to do that in a repeatable way. So the mistakes that we see people make, there's two big ones. Number one, they do not get involved in the local market, meaning they just have an office, they maybe do some social media posts, they write a couple blog posts because they feel more comfortable in the digital world than they do in the actual physical world, and they don't actually go meet anybody face to face. I had a mentor and he'd always say, business is done belly to belly. And I always thought that was super weird. A very weird saying because I never actually touched bellies with somebody as another business owner, but I get it. You want to go face to face and you got to actually have conversations with people. If you're not doing that, you're going to have very, very slow growth unless you have 16 cousins that live around you who all happen to be dentists and physicians and they're all going to refer to you. If that's the case, you can just sit in your office and let people come in. And if that's not you, you're going to have to go out, you're going to have to meet people and develop relationships. You can't avoid that. And there's anxiety and there's a challenge associated with that. I've gone through it, I know. Like I've literally sat in my car in front of gyms and not gone in because I didn't want to bother them. I didn't want to get rejected when I was talking to them about what I did and what they did. And it sucks, but it's something that you have to get over. And it's worth getting over because it can help you in so many other settings as a business owner going forward. That's the least of your problems in certain settings, in certain stages of your business. So you got to get involved locally. This is what we call local marketing. So being a part of your local area, and in particular, your niche. So whatever your niche is, define that and try to dominate that and be a part of that in your area. So if you're a runner and you like to work with runners, it's a pretty good idea to start getting involved with run groups, to start spending time at running shoe stores, to start getting relationships with running coaches. Like anything that involves that and you're involved in that, that's going to help you get your clients in the door that you actually want to work with. So make sure you're getting involved, dominating a niche and defining a niche. And the last thing is you got to learn how to sell. So if you want to start a practice and get to the point where you're at, let's call it a side hustle between $5,000 and $10,000 a month, which for most people is going to be the difference between them being able to leave a full-time job and not. And for the vast majority of folks, the transition is going to be they start a cash practice on the side, usually evenings and weekends. They build to a certain point where they have enough money or close to enough money coming from that to where then they can make the leap and they go into their own business. And for most people, it's going to be somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000. Depends on your family, depends on your situation, right? If you're single and you're living off $1,000 a month, then maybe you can do it much faster. But if you have 2 kids and a mortgage, it's probably going to take you longer. You're going to have to generate more money to be able to safely make that transition for most people. So in order to get to that point, you have to work on local marketing and you have to learn how to sell. And learning how to sell is really understanding how to have a conversation, how to have a conversation with somebody about the problem that they have, the way in which you're going to help them solve it, and ultimately what they're moving towards. So what's the future state that they want to move towards that you can help them move to? And you're doing this already in your clinical setting. You're doing this so you can help get buy-in and compliance with what you're doing with your plan of care. But what you're not doing is talking to them about money. And that is actually a really challenging thing because for most of you, that's not a conversation you feel comfortable with. You either grew up with money and your family never talked about it, or you grew up without money and you never had enough of it, and it's something that you sort of fixate on. And this is a big problem that we see over and over again. So you got to work on sales, you got to work on your relationship with money and really getting better at feeling comfortable talking about money, because what we do is very valuable. And if you don't feel that you're very valuable, other people are definitely not going to feel that you're valuable. So to reiterate, going back through, you got to get your Practice Act reviewed. Talk to a healthcare attorney. That's my advice. I know it costs money, but it's going to save you money in the long run. Get an LLC or a PLLC set up. Go ahead and do that with a CPA if possible. Again, it's going to cost you money, but at least you know you're going to do it right. Get an NPI number. Get a business license. Get a bank account, a business credit card, malpractice insurance. Set up a basic website, your social presence as well. Find a place to work with people, whether it's in your house if possible, at a sublease space. Maybe it's mobile to start with. And then from there, decide what niche you want to dominate. What are you going to be the best in the city for? Because you can't be the best at everything. If you want to fail at a cash practice, try to be the best at everything to start out with. It's not going to work. So dominate a niche, define it, stick to it, be the best in that area, and then get involved in that local market and start working on your money mindset and learning how to sell. Because if you can do those things, just those basic things, here's the end result for that. And obviously it can be more intricate than this, but here's what that leads to. If you know, hey, I can make and replace my income working full-time somewhere else, you know that you never have to work for someone else the rest of your career. And that is a profound feeling, a feeling of autonomy, of being able to, move towards your own destiny, whatever that might be, and managing your own life with the thing that everybody needs, which is money, which is the biggest problem that we see for folks in the profession is being underpaid and overworked. And for you to be able to say, I'm going to learn a couple other skills and I'm going to apply that to my clinical skills, which I haven't even talked about. I'm assuming that if you're going to start a cash practice, you're better than average as a clinician. That's my assumption. And if you're not, go become better than average. All right, go get better as a clinician first. Then you can start a cash practice. But if you can learn some other skills, in particular sales and marketing, and you can start to apply that to your clinical setting, you're going to be able to replace your salary and more, and you'll never have to work for someone else the rest of your life. So I hope this helps. If you're interested in learning more, head to physicaltherapybiz.com. We've got a ton of great resources there for you, and especially if you're just getting started, we have a 5-day challenge that you can go through that has a ton of great resources to get you organized in exactly how much you should be charging, exactly how many people you need to see, how much money you need to replace, your actual financial plan to get you there, and even a 1-page business plan at the end to really make sure that you're committing and you're holding yourself accountable to get the result. So physicaltherapybiz.com. Again, I'm Danny Matta. Thank you so much for watching the first episode of Caffeine and Cash Practices, and we'll see you on the next one.